everybody, my name is Zen and welcome to our guide for Story Mode -Roode, the first boss inside Scum and Villainy. This is an alternating two-phase fight that has a low gear requirement, but it can be pretty unforgiving if you aren't paying enough attention. The boss himself has 3 abilities that he does, but the fight has several mechanics to watch out for. The first of these mechanics is the Howling Sandstorm. This sandstorm fills the entire boss area, and while you're in it, you'll get a stacking debuff. The debuff causes you to take damage every few seconds, and the damage increases the higher the debuff goes. The only way to avoid the sandstorm is to be within the confines of an environmental isolation field generator. While you are inside of this shield, you are protected from the sandstorm. However, the shield has limited power and will only last for a brief amount of time. Thankfully, there are a total of 4 stations that are located here on the map. Each one is also illuminated by a light within the dark desert. Once the main shield loses its power, it marks the end of Phase 1 and begins Phase 2, where someone can pick up the generator and create a much smaller version of the shield. When this happens, it's advised that you move quickly to the next closest generator because the small shield lasts a limited amount of time, but this is indicated by a buff the person gets when they pick it up. There will also be some yellow circles that spawn, and walking into these will cause some minor amounts of damage. However, they do apply a very strong slow effect to your character, and you should be able to easily avoid these since they spawn in the same place every single time. During this moving phase, 2 random players will also become lost in the desert. This teleports the players to a location far away from the safety of the shield generator and into the middle of a group of womp rats. These womp rats have very little HP and are pretty easily killed on story mode, but you should use any defensive cooldowns as necessary when you are bringing them back to the main group. Once you get back, everyone can AoE the womp rats down and then refocus onto the boss. There is also a consumable item that is required in order to survive the effects of the sandstorm when you become lost, although we will discuss this later. The boss himself has 3 abilities that you need to watch out for. The first is an AoE knockback that will likely knock you outside of the range of the shield. The second is a front conal attack that will do quite a bit of damage and knock back anyone who is affected a great deal. And lastly, he has an ability that will knock the tank far into the air, stunning them for a brief moment. During this time, the boss will go to whoever has the second greatest amount of threat. This ability is meant to be a tank swap, and your off-tank should be prepared to taunt if the boss does not immediately go for him. It is also worth noting that the boss does not do any of his main abilities while in Phase 2. We are almost ready to discuss the strategy, but before you start the fight, you will need an item called the Personal Environmental Shield, which can be bought from a vendor that is found at the start of the operation where you first zone in at. These shields only cost 500 credits, and I would suggest getting a full stack of them, since you may end up using more than one during a fight. The boss strategy is as follows. You should start the fight mounted up, as you must quickly pass through the sandstorm to get to the very first shield generator. The first person to get there should click on the generator to start the fight. There are 2 main areas to take note of while you are inside of the shield. The first is that there will always be a large rock of some sort. You'll want to have the tank who's tanking the boss to face their back towards this rock. This will negate the effects of any of the boss's conal knockbacks that he does. This also lets the tank keep the boss in a consistent location. The second area is that of the shield generator. It is possible as a ranged DPS or healer to place your back against it, and when the boss does his AoE knockback, you can bounce off of the generator and remain inside of the shield itself, rather than having to constantly run back inside. After a few seconds of clicking the shield generator, the boss will spawn in the distance, and you should have your tank quickly move him into position. Once the boss is in position, we have our second tank taunt to establish some aggro. Once that's done, our main tank taunts right back. This allows us to be prepared for when the boss knocks the current tank into the air, since he will then switch to our off tank who is already in position. It's pretty much a tank and spank at this point, as your DPS will just have to DPS the boss and your heals will just have to make sure everybody stays alive. This continues until the shield generator runs out of power, which then marks the start of Phase 2. Before going into the fight, you should determine who's going to be your shield carrier. It should be the same person every time, so that way they can establish some type of rhythm when moving from one generator to another. We've decided that the best way to do it for us is to have a tank carry it. That way our DPS can focus on DPSing while they're on the move. Since I'm usually the one carrying the shield, the best way I've determined to do this is to face my camera backwards and back up. This allows me to move slow enough for everybody to stay within the shield, and for them to DPS the boss. If you're the shield carrier, you should try to have a predetermined path, that way your group knows where you'll be headed every single time. It's during this phase that the two people will get teleported out into the wilderness. Do what you can to escape the Womp Rats, but don't let them distract you since this is only story mode. And remember to immediately use your personal environmental shield generator, which will protect you from the effects of the Sandstorm. This item has a 3-minute cooldown, but it will last long enough for you to get back to the group without taking any stacks of the Sandstorm debuff. It's also important to note that the person moving the shield generator will never get teleported into the desert. Once you make it to the next shield generator, this will re-establish Phase 1. From here on, it's just rinse and repeat through Phase 1 and Phase 2 till you get to the end of the fight. Once you get to the final shield generator, it's the last one. You have to kill the boss soon after the shield fails in order to actually defeat the boss, because the stacking debuff will become too much for your healers to be able to heal through. Most people won't have any issues defeating the boss before the final shield generator. However, if you are having DPS issues, one little tip that may help is during Phase 2, once you get to the next shield generator, hold on to the shield and don't click it right away. Wait until you have about 10 seconds to 5 seconds left on the buff, then click it, re-establish the shield, and continue on. This will allow your DPS a few extra seconds of DPS, which should make it so you can kill the boss before the end. After you've begun to master the 2 phases, this fight should feel quite easy to you, and you should have no problem farming him for all the fat loot. So on that note, please leave any feedback or suggestions in the comments below, subscribe to us on YouTube, and we shall see you guys next time.